Maureen here.
Let's call this meeting to order. I'd like to have adoption of the agenda. Moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion for the budget for 2019. Ella?
Okay, good morning. Thank you all for coming out today. Been working on the budget, trying to put some amounts and figures together. And looking at the previous information that I had, and some of the objectives were actually unclear. So one reason I've asked council to do this meeting today is because I have some questions that I would like to ask them. And in the meantime, too, I'm sure you all may have some questions as well. We are still looking at this in a preliminary basis. One thing that we do need to get done as soon as possible is to set our millage rate. I would like to have the millage rate set at the same time we approve our budget if possible, because those actually go hand in hand. But I just have a few things that I just want to discuss and ask the mayor and council at this time. I've actually been looking at the revenues for the city of Sky Valley, and I'm actually looking for suggestions for possibly doing some increases. I know that's not popular with people, but we need to see about increasing our revenue. The city of Sky Valley offers services, and to continue services as they are, we need to be looking at other sources of revenue. I've looked at tax increases. I've looked at reducing the actual homestead exemption, which is currently $25,000. That is highly unusual within the state of Georgia. Normally, just like with the county, it's only $2,000, but we also need to look and see if it's going to make up enough difference to reduce that to actually consider that. That's something I've sent mayor and council information on, and looking at it, it would only net us about an extra, if we reduce it by 50%, it would net us about a $19,000 increase in our revenues. So that's one thing, you know, to look at. You got to look at the overall. My question is, like I said earlier, do we want to continue with the services that we offer as the city of Sky Valley as it currently is, or do we want to cut back services? I mean, I'm looking for input, because looking at all this, I feel like there has not been a clear objective that we need to move forward in, and we need to get some guidance on this. I'm also looking at some other things. I know there's been some equipment issues that we need to address, and those are capital items. And what I'm proposing to do, I'd like to send out a list of priorities to the council, to the mayor and council, and let them respond to tell me which ones they feel like are their priorities that we need to address in the 2019 budget. And I think this will give me some ideas as far as where we need to go with this budget, and let's look at this from a realistic standpoint. The other item that I'd like to address too, capital outlays. I know we have a 5-year plan. I also would like to address a contingency in each division. This actually allows for items that come into that are not necessarily budgeted, that we can approve with our financial policy, that we can move forward with it. We don't have to sit here and wait for certain items. And this is just some of the items that I'm coming up with, and I'm just going to ask mayor and council if they have some responses or if they can give me some guidance with this.
With that $25,000 reduction we have on that homestead now, on a $100,000 house, what was that, $100 off the taxes is what it was, or what was it? I can't remember. I looked at it.
I think it's, I think it's around 200, I think it's 200, don't quote me on that, I'm not sure.
$200 less on the
Right,
taxes.
Right.
And just so that everybody knows, there are only
There's 97.
97 houses that have that homestead exemption. So what Ella is proposing, as I understand it, is that 97 houses are gonna pick up, I think you said $19,000
Right.
for the rest of the people who don't have the homestead exemption. So there's an issue that I have right there, in that the people that live here with a homestead exemption are gonna be penalized
Yes.
in a manner of speaking. You use whatever word you want. They're gonna be penalized to take up the slack for the other half of the, or the other, what, 5/6 or whatever the heck it is of the people that are here. So I've got a problem with just that thing there. I understand what she's saying, that we've got an issue and we need to address it. So there are other things that Ella has come up with that are doable depending on how the community thinks about it. So
Right.
do you want to bring up those
I
other items?
can, sure. One thing, I was looking at the water, garbage, and recycling rates. Went back and looked at those, and the last time it appears that they increased was in 2015. And looking at it statewide, and you've got to also consider the cost of upkeep of wells, water lines that we have that are ongoing. Infrastructure is something that you have to do no matter what. And you have wells that you have to keep up, you have all the storage tanks that we have to maintain. We need to be looking at that as possibly as a source of revenue that we could increase. I would propose that we possibly look at increasing water and garbage rates at, I would do a sliding scale. I would say do so much, maybe a 5 or 10% at 6 months, and do it another 5% or 10% at another 6 months, and move it so it is a sliding scale so it doesn't hit everyone at once. That would be another way that I would propose looking at increasing our revenue.
Well, wouldn't. Sometimes I feel like that's a pretty steep bill, but then when I stop and think about it, I don't have to haul my recycling down the hill. All I have to do is get my little tail out and take it up to the road and get rid of all these big cardboard boxes we collect sometimes. And what do y'all think? I don't know that I would object.
I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to understand your sliding scale. Could you expand on
Sure,
that?
sure.
How that would happen?
What I would propose that we do, if we do decide to do an increase, instead of doing, say like you wanted to do a total 15% across the board.
Okay,
Instead of doing a total 15% all at one time, do it 5% for 6 months. For your first time, your increase would be 5%. Then in 6 months, do another 5%, and then do another 5% 6 months later. So
What kind of revenues are you projecting to earn each time you do that sliding
I
scale?
don't have the actual amounts yet because I'm looking at total revenues for the year, and right now I'm not sure because it fluctuates so much. And I want to get some more figures before I actually
Yeah.
present that.
Is it not true that we're still paying for the new water lines that were
We
installed years
are.
ago on a bond issue?
We're paying those back from GFA funds that we received. We
And
do
the cost
have-
of those will not go up.
No, the cost of those will not go
Correct.
up. And normally what happens when you do these GFA loans, because I've dealt with them quite often, normally when you start looking at the GFA loans, you try to increase your revenue to help cover some of these. We do have the revenue that's coming in, but I think we really, to upgrade equipment and keep everything going and the cost of things going up like they are, we need to be looking at some source of revenue in addition to what we already have.
What are your projected cost increases and where are they?
Well, we're still looking at capital because we've got equipment that is out of date. that we're continuing to have to upgrade. Like, for instance, our telemetry was recently down. We had to get someone to come in and upgrade our telemetry, which was something we had not anticipated. But it's something you have to do, because otherwise, you've got somebody going out and working on the water tanks all hours of the nights because your levels drop, they go high, and you can't, you cannot continue with that because you have to make sure your water is properly treated.
Okay.
I'm sorry, somebody else wants a question.
Couple of things. One, I was thinking about it, and the water rate would affect everybody in Sky Valley, would it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
What would 1 mil raise on the total property values?
That would be approximately, I believe it's $58,000
Okay.
approximately.
So, there's another thing. Another question, what are our reserve balances? Because that has been a moving target over the last year. Do we have a firm handle on what that amount is?
No, and I agree, because it has been a moving target.
Yeah,
At
okay.
this point, it is unclear, and that's why I'm asking for some direction of how y'all want to proceed with this.
Okay, and one other question. Okay, we're looking at increased revenue. Why don't we look at a list of cost savings? I've seen some things in the emails, and I know it's not at all popular. But let's look at those and see if any of those are worthy of consideration. I don't know if they are, but something to look at as well.
I think Doug had his hand up first.
Well, two quick points. One was, you mentioned dropping the exemption was putting more of a load on the people, the 97 people that have that exemption. I would argue that it's exact opposite. Everybody else has been paying for that all along. We're paying millage on the full amount without the 25, and you're saying dropping it is shifting the load to you. I'm saying, no, it's shifting the load off the people that have been carrying it. Irrelevant, I'm not against a 25 exemption. Have you looked at the possibility in utilities? A lot of cities, municipalities that I've dealt with have, as your volume goes up, the rate goes up. I don't know if we've got a flat rate on per gallon or...
No, we do have a sliding scale based on your consumption. It goes up with that.
It does go up. Okay,
It's
thank you.
already
I
set
don't
that
know
way.
that,
Yes,
so...
sir. Yes, ma'am.
Mine's more of a general question. You mentioned the increased cost on machinery. Okay, what is you say everything's going up. Why is everything going up?
Well, the main thing that we have that I have seen in looking at equipment repairs, our equipment is old. It needs to be updated. After so long, when you use something day in and day out, you end up spending more money maintaining it than you would if you purchased, new equipment.
So you need maybe $100,000 to buy all new equipment? I mean, what goal are you trying to get to?
Well, and that's the thing, until we get an exact amount and some guidance of where the priorities are, that's
Right.
why I want the priorities, so
Right.
I can get you a firm number, this is what we're looking at. You gotta have a true picture to look at, and not just, things that are
Yeah,
on there that may necessarily not be the case.
Do we not have money still in the capital improvement
We do have some. yes, sir.
account?
Mhm.
How much is sitting in that?
I'm not sure at the moment, no, sir, I've not.
Why not?
Excuse me.
If we're dealing with budget, we need to know figures.
Yeah,
Correct?
we're trying to find them. In fact, we had an open records request to go back and find all the documents for our SPOS funds for 02, 07, 2013.
Right.
The 02 and the 07 records are non-existent.
At the county level?
No, at our level.
Our level.
We cannot fulfill that open record request. I've also found a capital projects account that was open, now it's closed. So we're trying to get those records.
What's the audit say?
Right.
Has the audit been published from last year for
If
2017?
if you're familiar with all the exemptions that the auditors take, that audit, it's not worth anything. It's not worth a thing, it doesn't tell the true story.
Well, then the auditor needs to be cited legally because they have to show real figures for real activity.
There is precedence for that. It has been done before.
So do we need a new auditor, is what you're saying?
Maybe, but that's not the core of the problem.
What is the core of the problem? If you don't.
Internal accounting. It's got to be the core of the problem, because the auditor just looks at what the auditor looks at what's been accounted for internally
Yeah.
and attests to those records based on tests and so forth. But
And they would issue a management letter if there's any discrepancy.
yeah, if there's discrepancies, I can't believe there's not been a management letter. Yeah, that
Well,
I'm in total
there
agreement with.
was, and also the auditor doesn't look at anything below $5,000.
But that's just a test. That's a, you know, what's relevant to this. But you're talking about records for years. That's not a $5,000 issue. It's got to be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
The equipment, you know, there's law that says you've got to keep track of your equipment. You've got to tag it, label it, whatever. You've got to, you know, account for it. And we're saying we don't have that either, right? Or it's not up to date?
There is a lot of it that is not up to date, yes, sir.
You know, I mean, that's...
That's what we're finding as we're getting into things, and we're just getting into things. And to be fair to Ella,
Yeah.
she's taking over 2 jobs and trying to put things together in a very short period of time. And the more she's getting into it, as I understand it, she's finding out that there are more problems. So it's going to take some time to sort through everything and to figure out exactly what it is that we're talking about. But suffice it to say that right now, things aren't as they appear to be. And then we'll try and find out specifically what it is we're talking about. Okay, and Ella knows more about this than I do, but even like yesterday, you know, she's trying to do stuff for today, but then we have a worker gets injured, and then there's people calling up, people coming in, and so she's constantly being thrown off her game as far as doing the budget. So she's working at it, we're working at it, we're trying to figure out what has happened. But for me, it's a red flag when we have an open records request and they spend time, the staff spends time trying to comply with this records request and then come up with nothing. We have nothing.
So you actually have no, that's why we just have an agenda, you have no real figures you could give us on a piece of paper to look at. You don't know what you've got. Is that what you're telling us?
We could, I would probably say that we have an idea, but rather than present an idea, we're going to need some more time to have the exact figures. We know it's not what it's been stated to be. And so we need some time. I don't need the time because I don't understand it. Ella needs the time.
But didn't this council start with a budget for this current year? You have a budget that you're operating on right now, and you have real and actual figures versus budgeted figures, so you know discrepancies that you may have by line item as of 6 months, 8 months, 7 months, at least through August, the end of August.
Right, I have my trial balance that I ran yesterday.
Sure.
I was working on updating some information that I had in the midst of, like you said, everything that was going on yesterday, that there are some things that I'm looking at that I want more clarification because they don't appear to be what I think they should be. So I'm just wanting to verify some things before I put other figures out. This was all done by previous administration, and I'm not saying anything has happened. I just want to be sure what I'm putting out is true figures, is my statement.
I guess from my perspective of being a budget manager in my previous life, how would you not know that what you have real at the end of August is not real?
I can answer that question for Ed.
Sure.
It's because we're waiting on bank statements to come in.
Okay, but you at least have 6 months worth of data that the bank statements are all in.
Yeah, we got
July.
6 months, the data.
Seven.
The problem is I'm trying to look at five years back and going forward. And I was told, 2 or 3 months ago that really I could only get details going back about 18 months because of a switch in the accounting system. And so now we're getting records from the bank so I can see the detail. I can see the detail for 17 and half of 16, and I've looked at that, but I can't see past that at this point, so.
Okay. I'm still in a quandary why you would not accept an auditor's audit report for 2017 and publish that information. That's the starting point. They gave you your cash balances on an accrual basis and a cash basis, if you're looking at a line item cash basis, and accrual basis for what you encountered and what you accrued to the future. I don't understand what's going on.
That's right, and you know we're trying to set the budget for 2019.
Correct, based on
Right.
this year's expenditures and last year's perhaps, and the year before, to see trends and see where you're headed.
Well, before Linda left, one of the last spreadsheets she sent us showed us with a total of $57,000 in unrestricted assets.
Is that in the general fund or enterprise, please?
General fund.
Okay. How is the enterprise fund?
Well,
Is that, no, I'm just saying, is it, you feel more into control there?
Yeah,
Oh, I
I
don't-
think it is,
I don't know.
yeah, the enterprise fund looks a little better. But like I said, going forward, trying to get a grip on what our capital is going to be this upcoming year, it looks, you know, it appears better. But again, we've got some issues with equipment that we've got to address.
Yeah, no, and I don't question that, and that's very typical to have equipment aging a little faster than you're
Right.
Yeah.
replacing it.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
how long do you think it would take you to get the numbers so you're comfortable with?
I hope to have them in the next week
Okay.
at the most, yes, sir.
So why don't you take the next week and put those together? When it comes to an auditor, a lot of people don't tend to understand. We've managed companies for years. The auditors saw what we wanted them to see. That's the same thing that happens with the city's books. The auditors see what they wanted to see. That doesn't mean they're right. So you need to get to the bottom of the numbers and then present it so that we all know where we're at.
Yes,
In
sir.
all due respect, she would have to go hide and let Alyssa handle everything that came through that door and all the mail.
we might need to do that.
That's
for a
what
week.
needs to be done, and that's what should be
Need
done,
some volunteers.
okay? And maybe you hire a temporary person for a period of time to do some of the things that could be done. But you need to get your arms around it.
Yes, sir.
Are you volunteering, Barbara?
I'm volunteering, I'll answer the phone, I'll take messages, I've done that in my life. I mean, you know, if that's what you need, is somebody to say, hi there, nice to see you, we'll put you in line.
Take a number.
Yeah, take a number and we'll give them coffee and cookies, but you gotta get to the bottom of it.
Just a quick comment. Alan, is part of the delay at looking at the numbers that you aren't unable to find them in Linda's computer? I mean, setting aside the everyday crises that come up in the city.
Well, one thing is everybody does things differently.
Yes.
You know, I'm used to one thing, she had it set up another way,
Mhm.
and I'm putting, you know, the pieces of the puzzle together,
Okay.
and time has not allowed me to get, like you said, get my arms around it.
So that is part of the problem. You just don't know where to look.
Well, I know where to look, it's just getting time to put it all together.
So you have access to Linda's computer,
Right,
is
I
what
do,
you're saying?
yes.
Okay. It's just a matter of figuring out how she did things and the way you did things, merge them together and produce a
Right.
report.
So how long is that position gonna be empty?
Yeah, one question I would like to ask is, I understand we're having difficulty replacing staff in the police department. So we need to, I would like to see that considered in the upcoming budget. I don't know about everybody else, but one of the reasons I came here was because of the police department. It's a good thing. So 24/7 coverage, in my view, is something that we ought to have, not only because of the police, but they're our first responders as well.
You're right.
Well, that's
We have
prioritizing.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
That's right.
We, you know, we've already increased for the budget for starting policemen. And our chief has been looking, we've advertised, and he hasn't, I can have him tell you just, Chief, why don't you just explain to them your problems you run into finding people?
Well, it's hard to give a definite answer when you have 0 applicants. Because we're just not attractive enough. We have a couple of huge hurdles. The main one we can do nothing about, no matter how long we talk about, and that's simple geography. We don't pay enough to lure someone to move here. And in light of today's, how do you say, media-driven world that we're in, it's not a very popular profession any longer.
No.
So people aren't willing to do it for what you're paying. We're not the only people having this problem. It's throughout the state. I've been to several cities similar to ours. I've been to Helen a few times. They've been over here a few times. Hiawassee. They're all having the same problems. It's hard for us to sit here. Our pay was sitting at $13 an hour. You can make 10 and 12 at Walmart. Nobody's gonna walk in and kill you. We bumped it to 15. Now we're looking at 19. And people are like, $19? Yeah, and we're still the lowest paid in the area. And the departments who pay a little bit more than us still have 0 applicants. What's the answer? We're looking for it. That's the answer. We're looking for it. But where we're at, geography, simple geography comes into play. North Carolina, South Carolina, 2 of our sides, their certification does not cross the state line. So we're having to attract people from Gwinnett County, Gainesville. They're making $25 and $30 an hour down there, and they have problems getting people. And they give them full health care benefits with their families, take on cars to drive 50 miles away, and paying double what we're paying, and they're having trouble filling slots. So what's the answer? We're looking for it, but we're not alone looking for it. But it'll take the right person to come here. And that's what we're going to look for. We're not just going to hire someone who wants to be a policeman and come here, go to the academy, and then leave us. We're not. That is not the answer, and we're not even entertaining that. If we have to send someone to school, we're attaching a 2-year service contract with them, or else they have to reimburse us for their schooling. Even doing that, 0 applications. So we're looking for the answers.
What's the North Carolina, South Carolina certification issue? Is that state law?
They're all state, because when you're certified in your state, you're certified on Georgia law, Georgia traffic law, Georgia criminal law, Georgia criminal procedure. That's different in South Carolina, that's different in North Carolina, it's different in Tennessee, it's different in Florida. We have a lot of officers here, Mr. Ponikowski, for example, in New York, his certification, 30-something years of experience, he would still have to return to an academy here to learn Georgia criminal, Georgia traffic, Georgia criminal procedure, Georgia constitutional law, all those things. And so that's the issue with across the state. They can go to an abbreviated academy, but you're 50 years old. Do you want to come and do PT every morning again? Probably not. So it's the right blend of people and everything that we're looking for. But we're not alone in this, but we're beating the bushes. And we've had a couple people come in and look at us, and we're not really attractive when they get here and look at it. The city's beautiful, but the police department's not. And they're like, yeah, no thanks, and they leave. And we can't really fight. We can't fight with what we're dealing with. But we're not alone. We have the other cities in our area has the same problem.
Okay.
Well, none of the residents are shooting at you, that should be a plus.
No, but the groundhogs will chase you. The mayors, yes. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yes, our crime rate is virtually what, 0.01%?
Depends on how you interpret crime rate.
Versus number of people.
Versus number of people, once again, it's all going to be on a scale. What are you going to count when you count your crime rate? Some places count calls for service, some places actually count arrest, and some Georgia violations. Ask yourself this, if we were to crack down because we needed to improve our crime rate, how many of you in this room have a traffic ticket for running that stop sign right there? How many running the one over here to Overlook? I sit out here every day and just keep a ticker sheet, 8 or 10 a day, right? How many speed up and down the mountain road? Despite the flashing sign. I've had people come and say, what does it mean when it flashes at me? You're speeding. Oh, really? All of that would affect the statistics, so it depends on how you're counting.
What about like Lake Raven does, a combination of, you have the police, but they have private security. And apparently that has worked real well for them.
Well, I'll tell you what private security gets you. You've seen the television commercial.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm a security monitor.
Okay.
Someone's breaking in your door, they drive up, 911. Someone's breaking in their door.
Yes, no, I know that.
They're a
but I
good
know
witness.
that.
That's
But
what you
it
get
does seem
for
to
the
work for
security.
Lake Raven is we can't find somebody, can we not look at that as a
That's
possible
expensive.
alternative?
You don't want to do that, you don't want to
I'm
insure for
I
that.
insured hundreds of security guards.
So
I know what they make.
if that's the council's decision, that's their decision. I would highly advise it against it. Ask the people around, go to Sapphire Valley, ask them, how does it work for you? They pay a lot of money for private security that calls the sheriff's department for them.
Right, I understand, but if we can't find anybody, what's the solution? That's my point.
That's what we're
That's what
throwing
we're
out,
looking
that's
for.
what is the solution.
Yeah, that's why
But
I'm
I
saying
don't
look
view
to
that
other
as a
alternatives.
solution.
No.
Private security is not a solution. You can pick up your phone and call 911.
Okay, so anyhow, you would hire them if they're available. So that's,
Yeah, and I think we will get there eventually. It's just gonna take the right person. We've had a few people come in, but they have walked away.
okay.
But,
What about paying the sheriff's department to keep someone up here when you need them?
well, we have part-time officers, and they're not interested because we don't pay enough. They can go down and work for private companies, make 25 and 30 an hour.
No, I'm saying paying the sheriff's department of Raven County.
Well, they should be patrolling the county regardless.
They don't come up.
But,
I've never seen one here.
I'm talking paying them to come up here.
You're talking basically setting up a contract with the sheriff's department, like I've seen in states, or in cities in New York State, where the town sets up a contract to have X number of deputies work the town. And they get paid, and they pay for their uniforms, they pay for the cars, they pay for all the expenses, their training and everything else. But the town pays the sheriff to basically put people in. They'll put up their own substation, and they'll have their own people, and it's dedicated to a particular area, not the rest of the county. But what that money comes into the sheriff's department from, it is to set up new hires, not to take people they've already got and pull them up here. Because the way I understand it, it's not going to happen in this county under the current situation, because I believe the sheriff's department is having a tough time filling slots that they've got there.
everyone is. Everyone in law enforcement is having the same problem right now. Unless you go to the metro areas where they pay significantly more, and even they have hard times filling vacancies. If you pay attention to the Atlanta News, they're fixing to do a big increase right now on pay, because they're short of jobs.
Now, Chief, I don't want to get into the details, the nitty-gritty details, but this, we have a shortage of police officers here in Sky Valley, correct?
Correct.
How does that affect you as the police chief, setting up scheduling for 24/7 coverage?
Impossible would be the closest word I could think of. When you have 4 shifts and you have 3 people, you're automatically a shift short. Okay? That's on, and if someone gets sick, takes a day off, or has their off days, someone's having to work overtime to fill those shifts.
I understand that, but I think what maybe the community doesn't understand is just what the situation is right now. And I don't know, and I've talked with the chief, and we don't know exactly how you move forward and correct this. But if you think you got 24/7 coverage every single day of the week, you don't.
Can't do it.
All right, it's impossible, like you said, it's impossible with the number of people and the number of hours and the days off and vacations or sick time when the chief was out sick and David Edwards was out sick and we couldn't get part-time people to come up, or they came up and they didn't listen to anybody. We've got some issues here. So I'm looking at it from a cop's standpoint, as I understand the community thinks we have coverage and that their public safety is taken care of. And we don't want public safety, then let's just say, see you, chief, take your men and leave, and we'll just call the sheriff's department and wait for them to come up in an hour or two or the next day.
That's right. They're
And
straight.
that's what's gonna happen, because the sheriff's department's priority is Lake Burton area. They aren't gonna come up here if they're patrolling down there, and even if they came up here in a flash, it would still be an hour.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's issues. This council is trying to make people aware of what we think the issues are, and I don't have solutions. I don't think, Paul and I talk a lot, we don't have solutions, but we're looking at throwing it out there and say, what's important to you? Do you want James to have 2 extra guys? Well, yesterday, he lost 2 guys. He lost 1 guy, and he's gonna be losing a guy that we were planning on having. So now, what about the leaves are gonna start falling? What are we gonna do now? What do you want? How are you gonna put this together?
I will say that when it comes to the 24-hour coverage, manpower-wise, man-hour-wise, we are short big time in that area. We do keep we have our new phones finally came in, Southern finally upgraded their technology in our area, so we have that. So Ron, David, and I are your 3 policemen currently, okay? And whoever's on the day shift, when they go home at night, they keep their radio on and they're on call. So we are on call, and that's similar to what Mount City and Dillard does. But it's gonna take a minute to get someone there, because what if David's on call, he's over at Piggly Wiggly buying groceries. He's going to get home, get in his car and get up here to get to you. And he will still be faster than someone responding from the south end of the county.
Absolutely.
If you take out traffic violations, can you tell us what the rest of the crime rate has done? Is it increasing?
I think we've seen a decrease in a lot of the activity that I would have classified as criminal when I first arrived here. When I first arrived here, the department was kind of running in an unchecked current, I don't know how to say it, but it wasn't running efficiently. The officers were really without guidance and direction. So a lot of the stuff wasn't being done that is currently being done. More aggressive patrol, put miles in, you should not work a 12-hour shift and have 22 miles in your car. I'm sorry. Okay? So accountability, or get out, be the biggest thing that we need in Sky Valley. First of all, we want our crime rate to be non-existent. We want it to be 0.
0.01.
If we're doing our job, it is extremely low. To do that, we need to be highly visible. Be out. Deterrence, deterrence, deterrence. When people ride around and see us, where did he go? I don't know where he went. But if he's sitting at the Overlook for 4 hours, because that's the only place he gets Wi-Fi, then you know where he's at, right? High visibility and unpredictability is the key to aggressive patrol. Now, that doesn't mean aggressive ticket writing. That means aggressive patrol, meaning that the people who don't live here, who are passing through, they know you're here, they don't know where you're at, they don't know where you're going to pop up and catch them doing what they shouldn't be doing. Especially with the skateboarders, those on Bayberry, y'all know, we have to keep a check on them. They like to skateboard down that hill, and we have to keep a check on that. Well, then you've also got the wildlife issues. You've also got the interstate out there, what we call it the interstate, the mountain road. You can spend your entire day writing traffic tickets out there, and you could generate, you could be a traffic ticket town if you wanted to. But if you're doing that, you're not over here in the main part of our town doing this aggressive patrol. So that's not our priority, and it never has been. The protection of our people is in the aggressive patrol. What we have through the aggressive patrol, we have found more doors opened. We have found more little things going on that can rise to those criminal levels if gone unchecked. So I would say we've seen a decrease in a lot of the things that were leading to some serious problems. Squatters, we've found a couple of squatters since I've been here. People who come into the houses because they know they're left abandoned for months. So without aggressive patrolmen and policemen riding the same streets every day, the same guy that knows that car don't belong at that house because I pass that house 25 times a day. That looks weird. I don't know that car. DeKalb County tag. What's it doing here? Is it a rental? I don't know. Check it out. A person who's just a temporary who works up here twice a month, don't pick up on that.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that we've tried to increase We don't want a spike in the crime rate. And we've been blessed that we haven't had it. We are considered a soft target because of our location. And the people that know that there's a cop up here. But what does the bad guys know that you haven't probably thought of is yet? Yeah, they got a cop. A cop. Okay? You know, if I can handle him or her, you know, where's their help coming from if they need something? If I bow up at you, where's your help coming from? This encounter will be over with, good or bad or indifferent, by the time anyone can get to you. And they understand that. Aggressive patrol, if you know, it's like I tell a lot of people, it's like a good guard dog. You know, if you got the poodle in the yard yapping versus the Doberman, you know, if the dog looks like he can perform the duty and the job, they're not going to come in your yard. But when you drive through town and you don't see anybody and you know that there's no one on shift and all that, your chances of getting caught are greatly decreased, which increases our chance of something happening. And that's the angle we've been trying to take. Aggressive patrol, high visibility. And you and I talked about that when I first came here. And you know, we had some great conversations about high visibility. And that seems to work really well here. We're kind of like a bottleneck because we have one way in, one way out of most of our town. And you keep those roads hot and heavy. And if they know you're keeping them hot and heavy, they also know that you're not keeping the back roads hot and heavy. So all they got to do is drive in and wave at you, and then they know they're okay back here. That's where that unpredictable patrol comes in. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Chief, I assume that your 3 full-timers are working overtime to try to cover some of the uncovered shifts.
Yeah.
Are they okay with doing that?
Yeah, right now though, the past 2 weeks, David, Officer Edwards, has been deployed to South Carolina for the hurricane. He's in the South Carolina National Guard. Ron is on a stretch, me and Ron are on a stretch of 12 days straight of either me or Ron, with no days off in between. And our part-timers haven't volunteered for a single day. So, it kind of puts us in a spot.
Well, I want you to know we appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate it. But as long as you know, if you call that number, no matter, now, granted, if it's an emergency, you call 911. We can't seem to get that message out to people. But the 911 call does a lot of things behind the scenes that people don't even think about anymore. One is it creates a record of the call. A lot of times, you know, I come to Miss Platt's house, and because I got a 911 call, and I'm here to help her. Okay. Well, what if Miss Platt now has dementia, and I show up at her house? She don't remember calling 911, and now she shoots me for coming in her house. Okay, and we know she'll hit me because I've seen her shoot. Okay, so she shoots me. Okay, if she called that non-emergency number, all there is on the recorded record is that there was a phone call made. 911 has that recorded conversation.
Right.
So if I come in and she shoots and misses me and I have to shoot her, we now have the evidence to show that I was legally there. She requested my, if she calls that non-emergency number, all we have, well, there was a phone call made. If I'm not able to speak and she is suffering some type of dementia or anything, where's your evidence when this plays out in court?
911.
911 is essential, but we do have a lot of people that call that non-emergency number. And a lot of times it is a non-911 issue. Bear on the porch. I heard there's a strange car in my yard. Yeah, they're sitting in your yard. Why? Because they're trying to get their GPS to work. Because guess what? They don't work up here, right? And they're knocking on your door at 1 o'clock in the morning because they're scared, they're alone, and they're lost. But when you call that non-emergency number, we will answer. Whoever's on call, they may be at home because they worked 12 hours already that day and they're at home. But they will answer. But 911 is the essential.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. See if there's any more questions.
Yeah, see if there's any more questions.
Is there any more questions from on the budget?
How many more budget meetings will we have? Roughly. I'm
Roughly?
not asking for dates or anything.
We should have a minimum of at least 2.
Okay.
We do have to advertise our millage rate prior to actually approving it. So that gives you have to have so many public meetings, and according to if we actually raise our taxes, you have to have the 3 public hearings, and that has to be timed out over the 14 days with the 3 public notices, so it, you know, we're looking at a minimum of 2, possibly 3.
Okay.
What is the deadline for the millage? We're setting it?
Actually, taxes normally go out, and the county is going to need something hopefully in the next month. We like to get taxes out, so, I mean, the pressure's on. I mean,
Okay.
it is.
We
The
need to
pressure's
know
on.
before October 20th to get your deadline of December 20th for taxes.
Yeah.
You gotta give big people 60 days, so we're shooting for before October 20th.
So the
Good
millage
luck.
rate could go up for this year's taxes.
If that's what y'all decide to do.
It's your decision.
That's just a discussion.
That will not be popular.
Do you have a list yet of what equipment has to be replaced at this time?
Yes, sir, I do. I'm working on that at least now as we speak, trying to get some updated amounts on it. Yes, sir.
Because I know years ago, we went through this process and bought a new garbage truck and the things we had to replace, and the other equipment we had to have. James certainly needed. So I'm just wondering, what are the costs? Do you have any projected costs on what that's going to be?
Not at this time, because the amounts that we have are some things that were actually, there were some quotes received for equipment. I'm going to go back and look at some of those and see if there's any way we can scale some of this down and not get something quite so expensive. You know, we need to look at something to make sure it's going to have a good longevity, you know, that we can continue to operate with our current situation. So we want to make sure we have everything covered.
Do you have the index from the county that reflects whether or not our revenues from property tax have gone up or down?
Yes, so we actually have the information on our digest, and it is not a whole lot of change on it for our 5-year history that shows what it is. So we're in good shape there. Property values did not change that
So
much
you wouldn't
this year.
have to have a millage rate increase to maintain the same level of revenue?
No, sir.
Any other questions? If not,
Thank you.
like to have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you guys for your input.
I'd like to make a motion to go to, call the meeting.
Yeah.